And so let me share my screen. I've made a little Bahubihi sheet for us to look at this morning. So you can see this page? Yeah. So in Pali, as well of course Sanskrit, we talk a lot about the nature of compounds. They all have these names, different names. And we don't just talk about them because they're kind of fun and interesting and we get to throw around cool terms. Because the real reason, I think, is because they help us understand how to translate the sentence, what the meaning of the word is, the role of the word in the sentence. And for me, I should say that this idea of the Bahubihi compound has been always something that has been a little bit tricky for me to grasp. And I'll show you an example where for quite a long time I couldn't really understand why the translation is what it is. And some people get it wrong. So one of these compounds is called Bahubihi, which in Sanskrit is Bahuvrihi, and it has the sense, or the literal meaning of that is much rice. Rice, like what you eat for dinner. And so it's kind of weird, but a Bahubihi compound, I note, is actually, the word Bahubihi as a compound is a Bahubihi compound. Because what is a Bahubihi compound? It's a compound which ends in a noun, and it functions as an adjective to a word external to it. And so, in a way, a Bahubihi compound is, we might say, in isolation, some other kind of compound, but the role it takes as an adjective therefore makes it what we're calling this Bahubihi. So much rice as an adjective could be sort of someone who has a lot of money or is well off. And so we might say, for instance, translate the word Bahubihi as well off. But it's not well off in itself. It's a person or something is well off. So it's an adjective. So let's look now. We had this verse from the Dhammapada, I think last week, and there was a little bit of discussion about asumukho and how that looks like a nominative. It is, but whether it's a noun in itself or it is perhaps an adjective. And I said, well, this is a Bahubihi compound. And so here we have Natung kamang katang sadhu yang katva anutapati yasa asumukho rodang vipakang patisevati. So that action, when done, is not good. That action which done or when done is regretted. And so here, now the second half, this is sort of the point for today, that the result of which, yasa vipakang, one experiences. So here the subject of this part is built into the verb. One experiences. And so how does one experience it? Asu, mukho, and rodang. So rodang, we know, is a present participle, nominative. This is that short form. Rodati would be the verb to cry, to weep. And then here, asumukho. So asu is our tears. Mukha is a face. So with a tearful face. But notice the point, which is that the tearful face is describing this person, the one who has experienced this regret. And so therefore, my point is that asumukho is functioning adjectivally to the experiencer, to the one that's referred to in this verb. So it's not referring to a tearful face in itself as a noun. It's an adjective. And so we understand that since it's an adjective, we can call it a Bahubihi compound. And so it refers to something external to the compound itself. So here I found a few more examples, interesting examples for us to look at. One is from the Collins grammar book, just these 3 words. This is just a snippet. Kondanyo pattadammo vidita dhammo. And so here, Kodanya, he translates, Kodanya is one by whom the Dhamma is attained and by whom the Dhamma is known. So here, pattadamma, badammo, so patta is a past participle of papu nati, to attain. So this word in itself would be Dhamma attained. And then vidita dhammo, vindati, to know. So, but notice how he translates it. It's by one by whom the Dhamma is attained. And so these words are functioning as adjectives that are describing the qualities of Kodanya. And so we can say these are Bahubihi compounds. So it's not Kodanya, Dhamma attained, Dhamma known, but he is one by whom the Dhamma is attained. It's describing Kodanya. And I found a couple more. So this, I took a couple from Venerable Bodhi's new book, which you probably are at least aware of. He's come out with this wonderful new volume, quite thick, about how to read the Pali Suttas. It's not a book for beginners, but it does have a very nice, concise grammar summary at the beginning of the book. And so here he has, in his discussion, his excellent discussion of the Bahubihi and other compounds, he gives a few examples. And so this one is from the Danda Sutta. Eva meva ko bhikkhave avijja nivarana satta tanha sangyojana sandhavanta sangsaranta sakimpi asma loka parang lokang gachanti. So, evam eva ko, just so, O monks. And so here, this is our Bahubihi moment. So, satta are beings, and they're described, these beings are described in 2 ways. Notice how they're on either side of the satta, not so uncommon, pretty common. Avidya, ignorance, nivarana. So nivarana is a hindrance. So this word means ignorance hindrance. But we're not translating it just as a list of 3 words. It's not, we wouldn't translate it just so monks, ignorance, hindrance, beings, craving, fetter. The point of this is to show that it's referring externally to the satta, to the beings. So he translated it as who have ignorance as a hindrance. And here, tanha sangyojana, and craving as a fetter. Who has craving as a fetter? Satta. It's adjective. It's an adjective, right? It's interesting that tanha is not one of the classic 10 fetters, actually. But in this sentence, it's referred to as the fetter of craving. And then sandhavanta, sangsaranta, this would be our, I think, present participles, running and roaming. Sakangpi, he translates sometimes. Asma, so this would be the ablative from this, the ablative of ayang, from this world, they go from this world to the next, to the other world. So here's a next very nice example of how Bahubihi compounds work. They are functioning adjectively. They're maybe a noun in itself, but they function adjectively to the satta. Here's another example. Bhikkhu sama samadhing bhaveti raga vinaya paryosanang dosa vinaya paryosanang moha vinaya paryosanang. So a monk cultivates sama samadhi, right concentration, and then we have these three interesting words, raga vinaya paryosanang. So lust, removal, culmination. Hatred, removal, culmination. Delusion, removal, culmination. But these are not just nouns in themselves, but they're describing sama samadhi. They're going with this externally. So we understand which has as its. That's why he has these extra words to kind of capture the quality of the Bahubihi nature, which has as its culmination the removal of lust, referring to sama samadhi. It's interesting, I think, that in his book he talks about how raga vinaya is a compound, which I think would be a tapurisa compound, because it is a genitive relationship, the removal of lust. So this piece of the compound would be a tapurisa compound, because in a tapurisa compound, its pieces have a case relationship. The removal, this would be a genitive case relationship, the removal of lust. And raga vinaya paryosanang as itself would probably be a Kamidaria compound, descriptive. But in this sentence, syntactically, it is a Bahubihi compound because it refers externally to sama samadhi. Yep. Are there any questions on this so far? I have one more piece, though. No. Diane, any questions? You're kind of looking, you have that sighing look on your face. I can see it from here.
Nope, no questions.
All right. Crystal clear on my behalf. I'll take full credit.
I have a quick question.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I really appreciate this, and I'm curious if Bahubihi, like what characterizes it is like, so looking above it, the avidya nivarana, like on its own, that could be a dvanda, like in a different sentence, it could be ignorance and like a hindrance, or something else.
It probably would be a tapurisa, the hindrance of avidya, the genitive relationship.
Or if it was like ignorance and.
It could be, maybe, dvanda, as you say, right.
So it could be, because it's in relation to another word, that's what makes it Bahubihi.
Exactly.
Otherwise, it could be Darya or Tapurisa or Dvanda.
Exactly right.
Great.
And
thanks so much.
So the whole essence of a Bahubihi is that it's external. It's the role the compound plays in the sentence which makes it a Bahubihi. A Bahubihi compound couldn't really say exist as one word because it has no relationship to another word. It's the relationship or the role it's playing within the sentence that qualifies it as such. In other words, essentially as an adjective. That's why it's called there's a fancy word for this, exo something. It functions externally to something else. So here, this is from today's reading, so we'll go a little bit out of off order. This is the one that had me scratching my head for quite a while. I couldn't really understand it. So this is from the Therigatha, right? This is the verses of the elder monks, number 505. Akodano nupanahi, ammayo rita pesuno, kalyana mitto so bhikkhu, evang pecha nasochati. Very beautiful verse. And notice here, first of all, that I've put in this apostrophe because there's a letter missing, which would be the letter A. And why is this letter dropped out? Why has it dropped out? For the meter, because we need 8 syllables. Akodano nupanahi. If we had an A, akoduno anupanahi, we'd end up with 9, which would break the meter. And so that is the only reason, I think, why we just allied these words together, who smushed them together just for meter. It's poetic. So upanaha is something like ill will, and this is a negated, unupanahin, so one without ill will. This is our een group of words, adjective in this case. This is the nominative. So these 4 words up here are referring, I think, adjectively to so bhikkhu, this monk, akodano, without anger, anupanahi, without ill will, amayo would be something like non-deceitful, and ritta pesuno, devoid or free of slander. This word ritta, devoid or empty of, we see this in those lists of emptiness words like sunyata. It's empty, it's ritta, devoid of essence, right? But here it's just used more sort of mundanely as without slander. And now here, kalyana mitto, the good friend, so bhikkhu. So for me, in my confused normal state, I had always thought, oh, this is telling us a monk is a good friend, equational, with an implied hoti perhaps. A monk is a good friend. Of course, we want monks to be our friends. But no, this is wrong. This is incorrect. And I'm afraid, I think John Kelly has it wrong in his answer key as well. And the whole point is that this is a Bahubihi compound. Yes, of course, a Kalyana Mitta is a good friend, but it is functioning adjectively or in a Bahubihi fashion to the bhikkhu. So he is good friended, or he has good friends. So one of the sort of things in my mind that helped me understand a Bahubihi is to mentally tack on this ed ending to the word. He is good friended. In other words, he has a good friend, or he has good friends. So this is the way we fall into the trap. And this is why it's important to understand these compounds, because it helps us translate correctly. Because it's not that the bhikkhu is a good friend. It's that the bhikkhu, along with having these qualities, he has this quality as well. He has the quality of having good friends. And evang pecha nasochati, thus after death he does not sorrow. Pecha would be an absolutive of the prefix pa plus the verb of motion eti. This would probably be the ya formation of the absolutive, which gets smoothed out to this pecha. So I hope this at least helps a little bit. to understand why the sentence should not be read as so bhikkhu, that bhikkhu is a good friend. So in other words, it's not kalyana mittu so bhikkhu hoti, but it's in fact bhikkhu has good friends or with good friends. Any questions on this verse? Have I started to make this clear? Sarah?
Yes, this is a simplistic thing, but I mean, it could still be equational, but it would be a bhikkhu is a good friended one. So
Yeah.
you just have to make the distinction because it obviously changes the sentence quite a bit.
Yes.
Whether he is a good friend or he has good friends makes a big difference in meaning.
Yes. Perhaps part of the confusion is that we don't have the verb to have in Pali.
Right.
And so there's this, for our English-speaking mode of thinking, we have this lack of complete understanding. But good, that's why I say that ed ending in my mind sort of helps.
That's super helpful.
Good friended adjectival.
I also have to say one of my confusions, is if I have any understanding at all about compounds, but I look at them, I sometimes confuse the tapurisa because the translation of the bahubihi almost gives a case implication. So it's a little subtle because he's someone with good friends.
Mm-hmm.
But now because of what you're saying, I'm for the first time seeing the distinction. So thank you so much, because I see that it's like the second part of that is a noun. It is describing bhikkhu as an adjective, and it is really existing differently than a tapurisa. So thank you very, very much.
I think kalyana mitto in itself would maybe be a Kamidaria, because it's adjectival. It's not really a case relationship. I'm afraid to say that in public because I'm never quite sure, and I'm often wrong. But I am sure that this is a bahubihi. Lisa, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm also a little bit confused. So what about the next verse? Kalyana Panyo. Would it be a monk who has good wisdom?
Yes, with good wisdom, right.
Okay.
That one seems less ambiguous because you wouldn't say a monk is good wisdom. It's an adjective. A quality of the monk is one with good wisdom, having good wisdom. So he has good wisdom, he has good friends. Does that seem obscure? Lisa, you've gone dark. I don't know. I hope I haven't confused you further. Let me also read you. I thought it was interesting. This is maybe another wrinkle, but here's Norman's translation of this verse. Without anger and rancor, undeceitful and devoid of slander, a bhikkhu with good friends does not grieve when he has thus passed away. So he's actually taking this as a plural, which is really a bahubihi quality, because this is definitely a singular word. But since he's good friended, Norman is understanding this to be that he's not so lonely, that he only has one friend, that he has the quality of friends, that he has good friends. He's taking it as a plural. Sarah, you have your hand up? No. Any other comments about the bahubihi compound in itself? We'll come back to it. We'll talk more about it. It's a little bit of a, for me, maybe it's just me, but for me, it's a little odd because it just seems like in English grammar, we just don't think this way. But we have to think this way as Pali people to get the meaning of the sentence often. Otherwise, we literally will mistranslate, will misunderstand what these things are saying. Okay, so then maybe we'll go now back to the beginning of this section. And I think we were in this sutta, Book of Fives, Anguttara Nikaya. By the way, so in our sutta here, we have Siho described as Senapati. What kind of compound would that be? Anybody want to venture a guess?
Taparisa? It's like the commander of an army. Genitive Taparisa.
Yeah, I think that would be right. But it's also an adjective for Siho. So maybe it could be, I'm not sure, Bahubihi, because it's describing Siho. It's not just some guy, somebody, something who's an army commander. It's an adjective for Siho. So it could be Bahubihi too. So I think we started reading this last week, so I'll go through the beginning of it very quickly. We did the first couple. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Vesali in the great wood, in the hall with the peaked roof. And so notice here our locatives, Mahavane, and Sala is a feminine long A noun, and so the locative of that word is Salayang. Yep. Atako Siho Senapati. Then the general, so a Sena is an army. Pati means something like a lord or a chief person, the person in charge, so the one in charge of an army. We might translate that as a general. Commanding officer, I don't know. Siho, the general. Then here we have our Yena Tena. He approached the Blessed One. Notice Bhagava in the nominative. Now our absolutive, Upasankamitva, having approached and having paid respects to the Blessed One, he sat down, ekam antang, sat down to one side, seated, past participle, to one side. Siho Senapati said this to the Blessed One. Sakanuko bante bhagava sanditikam dana palang panya petung. So saka is a word that means possible, but here we have this interrogative particle. I think particle. So it gives this question quality. Is it possible? And then here, this is our infinitive, panya petung. And the infinitive often has a sort of dative quality, to point out, to make known. So as I mentioned, this is the causative form of the verb, the very common verb pajanati, panyapeti, to point out, to make. The cause to understand is to make known. To make known, sanditikang dana palang, the fruit of giving directly visible. Right? And so the Buddha answers in the affirmative in 5 instances, in 5 ways. And so here, yes, or it is possible, siha, direct speech, T, the Blessed One said. And then he continues, Dayako siha, danapati bahuno janasa piyo hoti manapo. So Dayako and Danapati, I think, would be 2 descriptive terms for one person. It's not really 2 people, because we have hoti, a singular verb. So a giver, and here Danapati, a leading donor or a liberal giver, is pio and manapo. Notice how they're on either side of this verb again. Dear and agreeable, bahuno janasa, for many people. Right? Since young P siha, a liberal giver, is dear and agreeable to or for many people. Thus, or this too, idang pi. But notice how this P is really not working in English in our first example because it's the first one. But it's telling us in Pali that there are going to be subsequent ones, more. And so this is sort of like reflected back in this sentence, the P. This too, but of course we haven't had any others yet, but we know that more are coming. This too is a directly visible fruit of generosity, of giving. And then we had number 2. Is Lisa here? Because I think she gave us a good translation of number 2. Would you mind doing that again for us?
Okay. And moreover, siha, well-intentioned people associate with a giver, a liberal giver. Since well-intentioned people associate with a giver, liberal giver, this is the visible fruit of giving.
Yeah. So here, Santo, and we've had this in our book earlier. I've written down here upon page 84, if you want to refer to it. Sant is, in fact, part of the verb to be, ati, present participle, and we have seen now sati, the locative form, but it takes on this extended meaning, not of a person that's just existing, but a good person. And these two words are referring, I think, to the same person, sapurisa. It seems essentially synonymous. So, and as Lisa said, how did you translate bhajanti, Lisa?
I took that as associate with.
Yep. Yep. Okay, good. Now we can look at 3. Furthermore, puna chaparang siha dayakasa danapatino kalyano kitti saddo abu gachati. So here, this is a phrase that should be taken together. Kitti saddo. So kitti is that Pali version of the Sanskrit word kirti. I think there's a famous author named Dhammakirti. So kirti can't work in Pali, and so we make kitty or kitti. And so saddo is a sound. So this literally has the sense of like a the sound of fame, the sound of renown, the sound of glory, but it means a good reputation, or it means a good reputation. And kalyano, we've had already this morning, is good. And so here, a good, this is the subject, the nominative, a good reputation, and we have this interesting verb, abu gachati. We recognize the verb gachati, and this would be the prefix abhi, like abhidhamma, but it's going with this second prefix ud. And so it moves to ab. And so it has the literal sense of going out. In other words, spreading out. So a good reputation spreads out for a liberal giver, right? This is our genitive, dative. And the same is repeated. Any questions on this? That one seemed a little bit strange to me at first because it doesn't make sense unless we translate it a little freely. No? Okay. And number 4. Diane, would you like to read some of number 4 and translate for us?
Puna chaparang siha dayako danapati yam yadeva parisam upasankamati yadi katya parisam, yadi brahmana parisam, yadi gahapati parisam, yadi samana parisam, visarado upasam kamati amam kubuto.
Yeah. I think this probably would be pronounced more like Upasankamati.
Upasankamati. So moreover, Siha, the donor, the liberal donor, Yamya Deva, the glossary has says whichever. So whichever parisam assembly that the Dayako or the Dhanapati approaches Upasamkamati, and then the yadi comes before the stream of things that can be approached. But I guess we don't translate it there.
Well, you
It's
could maybe
either
translate it
or.
as whether it be or something like that.
Okay, whether it be the warrior caste assembly, Katya,
The
or the
Katyas or the Kshatriyas.
Kshatriyas, the Brahmin assembly,
Hmm.
the Gahapati or the householder assemblies, and the Samana, the recluse. Visarado is self-confident or as self-confident. Upasankamati, he approaches self-confident, and the amam kubuto is without confusion.
Or I have untroubled. Yeah, without confusion, untroubled. He's not worried about this. He's confident, right? It's very much similar to visarado. But notice here our verb, upasankamati, that visarado and amankubuto are not objects of this verb, right? These are nominatives. They're referring back to the Dayako Dhanapati. And the object of the verb is still the parisang, the assembly. So this donor is approaching the assembly. How does he, in what way, with which qualities does he approach the assembly? Visarado among kubuto. So don't get confused and think, oh, here's the verb and here's a couple of words next to it. These are objects. No, these are adjectives describing Dayako Dhanapati. Yeah. Did you read the second half, Diane? I forgot already. Just read it for us.
Yampi siha dayako dhanapati yam yadeva parisam upasankamati. Yadi katya parisam, yadi brahmana parisam, yadi gahapati parisam, yadi samana parisam, visarado upasankamati amam kubuto. Idam pi sanditikam danapalam.
Yep. Thank you.
It's almost the same exact.
Yeah, we don't even maybe need to read it. It's exactly the same. I think I noticed in Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation, he doesn't translate these second halves even at all, because it's that kind of Pali quality of repeating, which English language speakers find annoying. And so sometimes it's omitted if it's exactly the same, if it doesn't give us any new information. Yeah. Okay. Number 5. Fiakra, could you read and translate the 5th one?
Great. Yes. Perfect. Puna chaparang siha dayako dhanapati kayasa beda parang marana sugating sagang lokang upajati yang
Okay,
pi
let's stop there. Sorry. Upapajati.
Upapajati, yes. Okay, so furthermore, siha, the giver, the bountiful giver. So at the breakup of his body, after death, he shall go to the blessed heaven our blessed heavenly world, or he shall attain. Yes, he
Yeah,
shall
I
attain to
think
it.
this is often translated as two options. He will be reborn.
I'm sorry that the internet connection is breaking up here. I'm sorry about that. I've just still have an unstable internet connection. So upajati is so that should be,
Upapajati. I hear you
upajati,
fine.
yes.
Perhaps you can hear me too. Upapajati is to arise or perhaps be reborn.
Right.
Sugating is something literally like a good destination.
Good
And
destination.
sagang lokang is like heavenly world.
Heavenly world, yeah.
And now we had a discussion about this kind of stock phrase. Can you explain for us the cases in these four
Okay.
words?
So kayasa is going to be genitive of kaya, of the body, and then beta is so that is an ablative,
Yes.
so that's the breaking up, and then so parang means after, and it usually takes ablative, and then marana is also ablative. It means death. So, but I think usually the way to take it is the first two words together, the breakup of the body, and then after death.
Exactly right. Right. Thank you.
Right.
Yes.
Mhm.
So let's do now
Yeah.
could you do now the second sentence?
Okay. Yang pi siha dayako danapati kayasa beta parang marana sugating sagang lokang upapajati idang samparayikang dana palang.
Mm-hmm.
So that, O Siho, the giver, the bountiful one, after the breakup of with the breakup of the body after death, he attains to the good destination, the heavenly world, or he is born in the good destination, the heavenly world. This is a samparayikang, so that's a different. So this is not this is not a visible fruit, but it's a fruit of the hereafter fruit of giving.
Right. So samparayikang would be sung, the prefix sung, the prefix para, and then there's that verb eti, often just represented by this letter I. And ika has that adjectival quality suffix. So for future lives, right?
Nice.
So that's the idea of it, for future existences. So how did you translate it? This last clause, this last sentence piece.
So I just said this is the fruit of generosity in the hereafter is how I put it.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just checking how Venerable Bodhi has translated it. This is a fruit of giving pertaining to future lives.
Pertaining to future lives, yes.
But I think that's very much has the same as what you said. Okay, good. Any questions on this sutta?
I got a question on point number 4.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you pointed out that the Visarado and Amankubuto are nominative kind of qualifying, or yeah, and my question is, since they're nominative, I mean they must be qualifying Dayako and Dhanapati to some extent. But when you translate that into English, I mean, you couldn't do it in apposition, like the giver who is confident and unshaken, approaches groups. It seems like it has to be translated like as an adverb, like approaches them confidently and unshakenly. But I didn't know that nominatives could serve that adverbal function.
Yeah. Well, it's very much as you say. You're right. And in fact, I'm looking here at Bante's translation, and he approaches it confidently and composed. Yeah. So, but notice how he uses he approaches it. He approaches it confidently. But yes, these are, as you say, adverbs. They're working adverbally because they're referring back to this. So I guess you're right. I hadn't thought of it, but I think you're right.
Yeah, it's almost like they're serving as adverbs describing the way that he upasankame, the way that he approaches, more than describing the dayaka, which I don't understand how that could be working.
Well, perhaps if we made an alternate translation to say something like, at this point we might say, he, confident and composed, approaches it. So that would be more adjectival. He, being confident and composed, he approaches it.
Yeah, that's more, okay. And that literal, that kind of makes sense.
So that would be maybe a more literal translation that would help understand the grammar better?
Yep. Okay, that does help. Thank you, Stephen.
Sure. Okay. Then we can move on to this one. Mark has a question?
I was just going to say, you don't usually call on me, but because I've been trying to catch up, but I have tried to translate this one and the next one. So if I could.
Good. Yeah, in fact, I thought of you because I know that you've been working on these constructions, and maybe you would like to read for us this first bit and translate it.
Okay. Evang samayang bhagava vesalyang viharati mahavani kutagara salayang atako mahali lichavi yena bhagava tenupasan kami upasankamitva bhagavantang abhivadetva ekamantang nisidi ekamantang nisino ko malahi lichavi bhagavantang etadavoka.
Yeah, etad
Vocha.
and then this verb is viharati.
Viharati.
They're all short A's.
Viharati.
I know I have this problem, and I think most English speakers have a problem that we tend to want to put stress on the penultimate syllable of words. So that's why one might think would be viharati, but this is actually viharati, more kind of equal.
I'm Australian, and in Australia we tend to always pronounce vowels as long, whereas Americans tend to pronounce them as short. If you don't know, so that might be an interesting. Like many words, I would pronounce with a long A that Americans pronounce with a short A. Oh. Anyway, I had a crack at translating this.
Yes, please.
So I have Ekan Samayang at one time. Bhagava is the Blessed One. Mahavane I found in the Pali dictionary means, Maha means great, and then Vana, jungle, woods, or forest. So I went with great forest.
Mm-hmm.
Kutagara is a building with a peaked or gabled roof. Mm-hmm. And Salaya is being attached to. So I thought that was a locative.
Well, sala means a hall or a room.
Okay.
I think we have that word in Western languages, a sala for a room or chamber. But you are right, it's locative as well as mahavane. Okay. But what about Vesalyam Viharati?
So Vesali is a place.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the other one?
Viharati. So he was dwelling.
Okay, dwelling.
So this is, by the way, I'm sure you know, but just to point out that this is a present indicative verb, but we translate it as if it was a past because, of course, this did not happen just recently. it happened in the past. It's sometimes called the historical present. And ekang samayang is, as you say, at one time or on one occasion. Samaya has the literal sense of an occasion, and it's in the accusative case, and this is sort of a special usage of the accusative to refer to time. It's called the accusative of time. Would you continue?
Yep. So my first sentence was, at one time, the Blessed One was dwelling at a building with a pig roof in the great forest at Vesala. And then I had Atako, and then Mahali Lichara, that's a person's name. Yena Ten Upasankami approached Bhagavad, the Blessed One.
Mm-hmm.
Upasankamitva, having approached Bhagavantam, the Blessed One. Abhivadetva, he greeted him. And then Ekamantang Nisidi sat down on one side.
Yeah.
So they had, yep. And then Ekamantang on Nisino, having sat down on one side. Ko, then Mahali Lichari Etadavocha said this to the Blessed One, Bhagavantam.
Very good. Yes. And let me just ask you, what is avocha? What tense is that? In etad avocha.
I don't know. I didn't write that one down.
You translated it correctly. It's
the
the past
ending
tense.
is, yeah.
It's a aorist, that past tense, and it has this what's called the a augment, which is a typical way to form the aorist tense. You add an a at the beginning of the verb. So it's etad avocha. This said. Okay, good. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Okay, Catherine, could you read and translate the next sentence?
Okay. Ko nu ko bante hetu ko pachayo papasa kamasa kiriyaya papasa kamasa pawatiyati. What, Venerable Sir, is the cause? What is the reason or condition? The doing of evil deeds, and for the manifestation or occurrence of bad evil deeds.
Yes. So we have these two really common words, important words, hetu, we translate as cause, and pachayo, condition. They're very similar, but they have different qualities. Something is a direct cause, something else is a condition for something to happen. That's a difference. And then what case is kiriyaya?
Kiriyaya is dative. Right. Dative for the doing.
For the doing.
Noun. Neuter noun.
Yeah, of bad karma or bad action. And pavitya.
Dative also for the manifestation.
Right. A manifestation, the occurrence, happening. Good. Why don't you do one more?
Okay. Lobo ko mahali hetu lobo pachayo papasa kamasa kiriyaya papasa kamasa pawatiya. Greed, O Mahali, is the cause. Greed is the condition for the doing of evil deeds and for the manifestation of evil deeds.
Yeah, good. Huilin, would you continue?
Doso ko mahali, heto doso pachayo, papasa kamasa kiriyaya, papasa kamasa pawatiya. Indeed, hatred, mahali, is the reason for doing an evil action. Evil deeds.
Could you say the last clause again? I didn't catch it with the internet.
Um, um,
Just this last three words.
evil.
Papasa kamasa pavatiya.
Hatred. Papasa. Hatred is the cause for performing and for manifestation of evil deeds.
Yes. Right. Good. Lisa, can you continue?
Yes. Moho ko mahali hetu moho pachayo papasa kamasa kiriyaya papasa kamasa pavatiya. So delusion, mahali, is the cause and condition for the doing of an evil deed, for the manifestation of an evil deed.
Mm-hmm. Good. Sarah, could you continue?
Okay. Ayonaso manisikaro ko mahali hetu. Ayoniso manisikaro pachayo papasa kamasa kiriyaya papasa kamasa pavatiya. So unwise attention, mahali, is the cause. Unwise attention is the condition for the doing of an evil deed, for the manifestation of an evil deed.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you, what kind of compound would you say manasikara or manasikaro is?
Okay, hang on. I think it's a bahubihi.
Really? Well,
No, okay,
what makes you
wait.
think so?
Oh no, I think it's actually a tapurisa because of the manasi, because that's in locative, right? Or genitive.
Well, yeah, you're right, but keep in mind that just analyzing the compound per se will not tell us if it is a bahubihi, because the quality of a bahubihi is that it refers externally to something else.
Right, and I don't.
But here, I think it would maybe be a tapurisa.
Mm-hmm. It's not adjectival because it's existing as a noun then. Unwise attention, right?
I think so. So here would be, as you say, and it's interesting because the whole case ending is retained, which doesn't often happen, I think, in tapurisa. So this is the locative of manas, right? So it's doing, making in the mind, manasi. So yes, I think you're right. Ajahn Kovilo, would you like to do the next one for us?
Yeah. Mitcha panihitang ko mahali chitang hetu. Mitcha panihitang chitang pachayo. Papasa kamasa kiriyaya. Papasa kamasa pavadiyati. So the nominative mitcha panihitang chitang is the misdirected mind, the mind which is misdirected. Indeed, mahali, vocative, is the cause and condition for the arising and appearance of evil action, wrong action.
Right. Did you say the word locative? Wait.
Oh, I meant vocative. For
okay.
Mahali.
Right.
Mahali.
Right.
Excuse me.
Yeah. So notice here that chitang is nominative. Yes, and neuter, and so for this, the adjective micha pani hitang, wrongly directed, is going with chitang, matching. I think I put here it's coming from pani dahati, and I've broken it down pani and this root daha, to put forth, to put down, to apply, to direct, to intend. This is the same root daha that we see in samadhi. Sam-a-da. To put all in one place. Samadhi, collect very similar words, I would say. Okay. Any questions on this sutta? I think Mark has a question.
Yeah, just on that one, when I looked up in the dictionary, I looked up miccha was like wrongly, and then, when it gives all the little, sample words, it had miccha panahita, wrongly directed mind. And chitta, I know, is usually mind. And in the dictionary, it says mind or thoughts or whatever. But I know, like from Bhikkhu Bodhi's talks, that it's usually mind. So it seemed like it was repeated twice. Like, they like cause and condition are very similar. So I had here a wrongly directed mind and thoughts. Because that extra word was there.
Which extra word?
Well, see, if miccha pani tam means wrongly directed mind.
No, it just means wrongly directed. It doesn't have the word mind in it. It's an adjective meaning wrongly directed. It doesn't, the word chitta is not, or the word for mind, a word for mind is not in that word. It's miccha, wrongly, and then panitang, meaning directed.
Okay. Let me just check what I was looking at here.
It's built, it's coming from this verb panidahati. Okay?
Yep.
And so that's a big discussion, which is external to this class, about how to translate these words, chitta, manas, chetas. People have different ideas about how they might be rendered into English and what qualities that they have. But I think for our purposes, we can say mind. It's clear enough.
Okay, I see. I'm looking again at the dictionary. It does actually have chitta in parentheses after.
Yes,
so, okay,
as a word that it refers to, but not as part of the word. Right.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Sure. Okay, now we can go. Sorry.
Just a quick question.
Yes, please.
With that same word, the miccha panihitang, I had read somewhere that these different prefix-like words like maha and eko and bahu, when they appear in a compound, it's indicating, unless it's, a bahu bihi referring to something else, then it's Kamidaria. Is miccha one of these prefix-like words which does the same thing as maha and eko and bahu, thus making it Kamidaria?
I would say yes, because it's not a case relationship. It's an adjectival relationship. Right.
Got it. Great. Thank you.
Let me just look very quickly here. Yeah, let me just read for you, Bhante, in this new book I held up, what he says about Kamidaria. The Kamidaria compound is made up of two members, with the first modifying the second as an attributive adjective, a noun or an adverb. So miccha here would probably be an adverb, wrongly, and it's an adjective describing panitang, directed. So I hope that makes it clear. Okay, so now we can go once again to because we had a preview earlier this class, to these Therigatha verses. They seem somewhat neglected now. There's all this talk about Therigatha, those very beautiful nurses about the bhikkhunis. But of course, we also have the Therigatha about the bhikkhus. So, maybe, are there... Tet, are you there? Would you like to read and translate the first one?
Sorry, Stephen, I didn't prepare. Can I pass it for today?
Sure. Bonita, have you looked at this one? You have to unmute.
Okay. Yeah, I have done it. I'll just read it out. Can you hear me?
Yes, please read it in Pali first. Yeah, thank you.
Ako dano nupanahi amayo rita pesuno. Save ta disako bhikkhu evam pecha na sochati. So, ako dano is non-anger, it's not being angry.
Yeah.
And nupanahi is ill will.
Without ill will.
Without ill will.
Because it's
Negated.
unupanahi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Upanahi. Amayo is also non-deceit.
Mm-hmm.
And Ritta Pesuno is free of slander.
Yes.
So I said without anger, ill will, non-deceit, and free of slander. Save Tadisako is a person of a bhikkhu of such a character. Tadisako means a character.
Yeah, or of such a nature, of such a character, yes.
Character. Evam Pechana Sochati is like after having passed away. Sochati means does grieve, but Nasochati means does not grieve.
Yes. Very nice.
My sentence.
Yes, please read the whole thing in English now.
Without anger, ill will, non-deceit, and free of slander, if a monk is of such character, after having passed away, does not grieve.
Mm-hmm. Right. So notice that these words, these 4 words on the first 2 verses, the first 2 lines of the verse, my first line, are all referring to the bhikkhu.
Yeah.
And then that, indeed, that the bhikkhu of such a nature, tadi sako. Let me read you Norman's translation just for reference.
Yeah, okay.
Without anger and rancor, undeceitful and devoid of slander, truly such a bhikkhu does not grieve when he has thus passed away.
Okay.
And would you please explain for us this word pecha one more time?
Pecha means having passed away.
Yeah, but kind of grammatically, can you give us a little more information? What kind of word is it? Is it a participle? Is it a verb?
It's a verb.
Not really.
I think you gave it to me, but I don't remember.
Okay, let me say it again.
Yeah.
So pecha is a absolutive, sometimes called a gerund.
Yeah. Okay.
That's exactly why you translate it as having passed away.
Yeah.
And it's built on pa plus the verb eti, which is a verb to go, often represented by this letter I or E. That's confusing. This thing on my screen with the dot on top. I call it I, but some people call this E. And it's probably, as I said, the ya kind of way of making an absolutive. I'm not exactly sure of 100% sure of all the dynamics, but putting this all together and smoothing it out in that Pali way, we get pecha. I know that's a very unscientific explanation, but I hope it's clear enough of how we'd end up with this word. And by the way, it doesn't have the word to die in it. And so this is sort of another polite way of saying dying. Another way we see a lot is having done time. Having done one's time. In America, at least, that actually means having gone to prison. But in Pali, it means having passed away, having died. Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you.
I had just one question on
Please.
that. Nasochatis. So I didn't understand whether you grieve after death or you grieve, I don't know.
Oh, I think the sense of it means his rebirth will be a good one.
Okay.
He's not going to be reborn in a place of misery. He's not going to be unhappy and crying in that subsequent new existence because of his good qualities in this existence.
Okay, so that means after his death, I mean, it's an after thing, afterwards what happens, right?
Yeah.
Grief doesn't have anything to do with like while living or something.
No, the sense is that he's not going to suffer after he dies.
Okay. Thank you, Stephen.
You're welcome. Okay, Lisa, would you do the next one?
Sure. Akudano nu panahi ama yor itape suno gutta dvaro sada bhikkhu evam pecha na sochati. So one without anger and without ill will, and one who is non-deceitful, free from slander, a monk always with guarded senses is gutta dwaro. That's also a bahubihi.
Thank you. Yes. What does Dvara actually literally mean, by the way? Just so we know.
Yeah, it means a door.
Yeah. So we sometimes actually call them the sense doors. The things, the places which external sensations enter into our mind. Yeah. Please, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
And then we have that absolutive again, pecha, having departed, does not grieve in this way.
Yeah. Yeah. So gutta is a past participle, probably, I think it's gopati, to guard, with guarded doors. And as you say so well, it's a bahubihi. And why is it a bahubihi, Lisa?
Well, it has a relationship to the akudano.
Well,
guess.
it's describing another word, but I don't think it's describing a kodano.
Oh, is it the bhikkhu?
Yeah, it's describing the bhikkhu. The bhikkhu has guarded sense doors, restrained senses, right? That's something we always are told in Buddhism we need to do. Restrain our senses. Gutta Dvara. Is that clear now?
Yeah,
you get it?
Yeah, it is.
Okay,
yeah,
good.
I got confused because of the endings. They end in O.
Yes, and why is that? And why is bhikkhu ending in U?
Yeah,
The answer is because they're all nominatives, but nouns exist in different classes, groups. And so bhikkhu is a nominative in this U, short U masculine group, and that's its form of the nominative. But the rest of the words are not in that group. They're in the short A masculine group, dvara. And so it declines to match adjectively with in the nominative, but its nominative is with this O. You see? So although when words function as adjectives, they match in case and number, they still take the case from the group they come. Is that clear? Did I say that in a clear way?
Yeah, that is clear to me.
So we would not have gutta dvaru, because that would be sort of jumping out of its group in a way.
It's Cora.
Okay, hi.
May I read my translation? Because my language is Spanish, so I made a lot of translation. I translate to English, to Spanish, and return to English to make some sense. May I read this one,
Please.
the last one?
Yes.
My translation, for me, it's something like that. Free from anger and from hatred, clean of deceit, bare of slander, evil, door guarded, like I write it like with a together like an adjective. Door guarded monk, he when he goes hence will weep no more.
Yes, I like how you did good. You did door guarded, because that was kind of how I was saying. I think of the bahubihi with that ed suffix. Door guarded. Right. Thank you. And let me ask you, by the way,
Yes,
in
thanks.
Spanish, is there a word for room, sala, or something like it? No.
See, yes.
Oh, it is.
We say sala for a lot of things. For example, for a cinema, we said sala of cinema or sala of my house. Or
Yes.
yes, we use a lot sala.
Gracias.
Yes, like a noun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's the same in Pali. Sala means a room or chamber. I don't know why.
In French, it's salle.
Oh, that's right.
S-A-L-L-E.
Exactly. Okay, thank you. We have a few more. John, would you do the next one for us, please?
This is the final one.
No, this would be number 3.
Okay.
Kalyana Silo.
Okay. Kodhano nupanahi amayo ritape suno Kalyana Silo so bhikkhu evam pecha nasochati. So this is the one who is free from anger, the one who is free from ill will, non-deceitful, the one who is rid of or free from slander. This monk or that monk is one possessing beautiful virtue, and he does not sorrow thus after death or having passed.
Right. Yeah. And I just note that Norman has for that, who is of good virtue, does not grieve when he has thus passed away. Right. Okay. And sorry, there's a question?
Yeah. Do you have a sense of where to put thus in an English sentence? Like when you translate evam, I mean, it seems like there's all sorts of places you can put it. Is there anything in the Pali grammar which indicates where that thus should be placed?
Well, I mean, not really. I guess it should be placed in this clause, the 4th one, evam pecha. Thus, having passed away, he does not sorrow. But as I just read, Norman has, when he has thus passed away.
Right. I guess the meaning doesn't really change that much. It's not.
I don't think so.
Okay.
No, it's maybe more stylistic. Okay. Maybe whatever you feel reads best in English without sounding obscure or like Buddhist hybrid English, as some people say. Words that only Buddhists understand what they mean, not regular people. Okay. Okay, Diane, would you please read and translate the next one for us? This is our famous one.
Kodino nupanahi amayo rita pesano kalyano mito sobiku evam pecha nasochati. So the first 4 words are all adjectives describing the monk, and they're all in nominative. One without anger, without ill will, not deceitful, and free from slander. Rita is from rinchati, devoid. It's a past participle.
I think that's correct, yes.
And pesuna, the word for slander, that comes from sanati, maybe, because you're hearing.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
I'm guessing.
Okay, I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm afraid I would have to look that up. It's a good theory. I don't know the answer.
Yeah, it's a theory. And Kalyana Mito is a good friend.
Yeah.
So the bhikkhu who has a good friend, or the bhikkhu with a good friend.
Yeah.
Thus, having departed, does not grieve.
Mm-hmm. And as we said earlier, it even could be taken in the plural as having this quality of good friends. It's possible. That would sort of really reinforce the Bahubihi nature. I got nervous at first, I have to say, when you said the first 4 words are adjectives, and I thought, why is she neglecting the 5th word? It's also an adjective. But you
I haven't
translated it
gotten
quite
there
right.
yet.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Huailin, can you do the 5th and final one?
Sure. Akodano nupanahi amayo ritapasuno kalyana pano sobiku evang pechana sochati. A person who has no anger, is free of anger, bears no ill will, who's not deceitful, devoid of slander. Indeed, a monk of good wisdom. Thus, after death, he does not grieve.
Very nice. Excellent. A monk of good wisdom. Very nice. Mark, there's a question?
Yeah, I had a question on the first one, the Save,
Yes.
and the second one. So I have trouble understanding that. I looked up that Sa could be he or she or that, but then it also said it could be if. And then the Ve was like emphasis, like truly or indeed.
Yes.
So, I mean, I went with indeed a monk of such character. But I noticed in the Kelly one, it's got if a monk is of such quality. So I was curious if you could just explain a bit more about that Save construct.
I don't really know about the if, maybe, but sa usually is the same as so. This is with a short a. If it was feminine, it would require a long a, sa, bikuni. But sa with the short a is identical to so biku, sa biku. That is a demonstrative pronoun, nominative singular. That's how I understand it. Ve is an emphatic particle, indeclinable, and it means indeed. So we might translate it as indeed that monk of such a quality. Does that answer your question? I'm sorry, I don't know about the if thing.
That's what I did too.
Such a is usually, I think maybe there's I'm guessing here, but I think there may be an alternate reading that instead of reading sa and ve, it could maybe be sa che. And the word sache means if. You see, so if we flip one letter, we get sache, and that sache means if. But if we take it as sa plus ve, because I've seen these variants before, so that's what I'm guessing. But if we take it as printed like this, sa ve, there's no if.
Okay. In the dictionary, it's got basically the nominative of the demonstrative pronoun, that, he, she.
Yeah, not she though here.
And then it goes on and it says, or in the sense of a conditional or causal participle or something, and says if or once. For example, sa, ko, so, biku.
I don't know. Not in this context, I don't think.
Yeah. The main confusion for me was that Kelly translation says if a monk is of such quality.
Does he have in his reading in the Pali sache? Or does he have sa ve?
Sa ve.
He does. I don't know then. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's all right. I found it quite confusing, but
okay. Well, let's stick to Mr. Norman.
Okay.
Such a bhikkhu, truly such a bhikkhu, or indeed that bhikkhu. Okay. Let's look quickly a little bit at our final reading from this lesson, which would be from the Milinda Panha, the questions of King Milinda. We've had this before. I mean, we've had readings from this book before. This is, I think, somewhat odd reading, in my humble opinion. And so here I'll do some of it myself quickly. Raja aha bante nagasena yo ida kalyan kato brahma loke upajaya yocha ida kalyan kato kasmire upajaya ko chiratarang ko sigatarang. And I wanted to mention that this suffix tara is a comparative suffix, and it means it's not introduced properly in this chapter, but if you want to see Garrett and Karuna Tilaka's explanation of this comparative suffix, you can find it. I've written down on page, I think, 156. And so you can look there to understand it more fully, or you can just kind of know that what it means here. So the king said, this is our form of the aorist, aha, bante nagasena, yo ida kalankatos. So here, this is, as I mentioned just a moment ago, this is another polite way of saying dying. And so kata is a past participle of karoti, and kala is time, kalang kata, so having done time, but it means having died, having passed away, and it's going with the yo, our relative pronoun, and we can, since we have an optative, upajaya, this is the optative of the verb we had earlier, upapajati. So, and the ida means literally here. It means sort of like in this case. So maybe putting that all together, one who, in this case, having died, might arise or might be reborn in the Brahma world. That's locative. And then here's a comparative. Or one who has died who would arise in Kashmir, right? That's a place on earth. And we have which one, what is slower, what is quicker. So chirang means long, but with the tara suffix, it has the sense of longer compared to something else. And siga is quick, fast, and which one is faster. And the sense of it is, if a person on earth dies and one of them is reborn in the Brahma world, which would be a heavenly realm, and one is born in Kashmir, which one would take longer to arrive there? That's sort of odd sentence, I think. Right? Sort of like, if a person flew to Texas and a person flew to Hawaii, which one would arrive first? But so the answer given by Bhante Nagasena is samakang, the same. So we've had this word sama with one M, by the way, meaning equal or same, and ka would be adjectival suffix, but in the accusative it probably has that adverbial sense, the same, great king. And so the king doesn't really he wants to know more information, so he says, Opamang karohi, please give a simile. Please make a simile. So here's the verb karoti in the imperative, and the object is opama, a simile. And I'll just do one more sentence because we're out of time. Kuhim pana maharaja tava jata nagarangti atti bante kalasigamo nama tatahang jatoti. So So the question given to the great king is where, kuhim, and then tava is the genitive of tvang, of you. Jata nagarang means city of birth. And so he's saying, where, great king, is your city of birth? And the answer comes, Atti, there is Kalasigamo Nama. So there is a place called Kalasigama. Nama means named. It's indeclinable, I think. Tat ahang jato. So this is janati, past participle. I was born. Tata ahang. There, right? I was born there. So maybe that's enough for today, since we're out of time, and maybe I'm out of brain cells. But we'll continue with this somewhat odd reading, and then we will continue into lesson 9, which is the fourth quarter of our book. Is there a question?
Yeah, just want to check if I see Kalasigamo, can I call it, there's a village called Kalasigamo Nama. There is a village called Kalasi.
Okay, yes,
sorry.
right. That could be, that's right. That's probably much better. There's a village called Kalasi, or there's a place known Kalasigamo. I think what you say is better. Yeah, because a Gama is a village. Okay. Any other final questions? If not, then we can finish. Thank you all very much. Thank you all for your participation and hard work. And I hope you don't get frustrated by this reading. It's a little weird, but we'll do it and we'll understand it together. Thank you. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen,
Thank
so
you very
much.
much.
Thanks,
Take
everybody.
care, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.